Right, let's get the latest now. SABC Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena joins us now. Isaac, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Are the roads still closed?
Good evening and good evening to the viewers at home. Yes, I just returned from the scene and we still having the two lanes closed. That's the two lanes going towards the south that are closed, and this is going to stay that way. At least we have agreed with JMPD and also EMS that it should stay that way and for the next 7 days, so that at least the teams that are going to start with the recovery and repair processes can basically do so safely with those two lanes, allowing them for movement of material and movement of people that are actually there. But also for our patrollers, we've got securities that will be patrolling the area overnight and even going into tomorrow, so that everything is clear. So, but the traffic, fortunately, because of the fact that today was a holiday, was flowing nicely, and we're expecting that even tomorrow morning it shouldn't be a problem, especially because kids are still off tomorrow, even though it's not really a public holiday. But we are expecting that there won't be much disruptions in terms of traffic.
But chances of disruptions next week then are quite high, especially because you're saying that the roads will be closed for 7 days at least.
Yeah, look, the 7 days we're just pushing it a little bit so that at least we are able to ascertain from tomorrow as to what still needs to be done in terms of the repairs. I think if anything, we'll probably be left with one lane so that we can be able to have our trucks and workmanship basically moving up and down in one lane. The bridge itself is a little bit congested, and the other side is where the tunnels are actually running, where the fire was, and part of it has been broken as part of the process when we're busy putting in the hose to put out the fire. So it's basically not easy to walk on that side.
What about the outage, of course, because there's been a lot of people who've been concerned as to when will power be restored?
In terms of the outage, you would appreciate that from the morning when the fire was declared, it was the site that the scene was belonging to emergency services and JMPD in terms of the traffic control. But City Power was not really involved in terms of ensuring that the repairs are happening, because of the EMS had not yet handed over the site to us by this evening. When I left the site, they hadn't done so. The meeting that we held on site, the last meeting that we had this afternoon, was that they will do further assessments tomorrow to ensure that the toxicity of the area is basically also controlled. They will also do some tests in terms of the structure and other things, so that it's safer for us to basically move in and ensure that we do the mop-up operations, we do assessments of the quantities of material that is needed, the extent of the damage to our infrastructure underground, including the cables that have been bent. So all that the work will start tomorrow. But what our teams were also doing, because the fire affected supply from Fortsburg substation to Braamfontein substation, so we've got Braamfontein and Fort substations that we can alternate. So the teams were working hard since the morning to try and find the alternative connection that we can use. And I think we are this evening restoring at least 2 streets, part of Volmarans and part of Smith, through the backfeeding that we managed to do. But the team is also still testing some of the interconnectors to ensure that at least majority of the area around Braamfontein, especially Wits University, is restored by later this evening. But most of the work in terms of the electricity repairs and the supply will start tomorrow morning.
So it could, of course, as you say, take a bit of time, especially because the scene has not been handed over. But one would say last year, this time, we were in this position. And there was, of course, concern even around the fact that it is showing that it was an incident of cable theft. Yet again, preliminary investigations, according to your statement, are saying that it is possibly cable theft. Is that the case? Have you seen and confirmed that? Because I know it was preliminary investigations, but have you conclusively, been able to say that? And 2, what are you going to do going forward to ensure that you don't find yourselves here?
Yes, by the time we left site this evening, we had a meeting with the EMS. They were putting out the fires where the fire started next to Car Street, one of our kiosks there, and they managed to basically get in to just clear up to ensure that there are no more blazes happening. And what they say they found were pieces of cables, suggesting that there was the cutting of the cables that happened before the fire started. Obviously, we will have to ascertain that ourselves as City Power when we move in tomorrow. But from the EMS account, from what they saw when they were busy putting out the fires, they managed to pick that there was one of the cables, high voltage cables, that was basically cut from our Car Street kiosk. This is where the teams, when they're doing maintenance, they get inside there and then they move up the ladder and then go towards the tunnels. So that is still suggests that we could be right that there was an element of vandalism and theft that led to this fire happening. And you are correct that this is a worrying trend that we've seen. Even last year, we were sitting in this same space on the same day, on May Day, where we were dealing with the issues of the fire under the tunnel. But even in between in the months leading up to now, we have been raising issues around the activity of the Zamazamas or the vandals inside our tunnels. We've got 15 kilometers of tunnels within the city of Johannesburg where our high voltage and medium voltage cables are actually running, and almost every day, every week, we've got instances of the shootout between our security and the vandals underground. They are very heavily armed, well resourced, and they are actually everywhere across the city. So you can imagine that as an electricity supply entity, we are not trained to basically deal with criminality. We are not trained to arrest some of these people. And that's why we made a call to the police who are trained to do this, to assist us, to move in with us underground, to ensure that they flush out some of these vandals that are operating underground. But that call, I think it hasn't been received very well, because we're still sitting here again on May Day where we're still having a situation. But also, if you look next to Car Street, there is a informal recycling a settlement there, where you've got these people that are pulling their trolleys, they claim to be recycling, that are staying right next to the kiosk where our cables are, where we suspect that the fire could have started. So those people last year, when this fire started, there were requests and plans that they need to be removed there so that space can go back to PRASA, who are the rightful owners, or at least the city can. But they're still there. So I think that is one of the things that we want to take up with the authorities, so that some of the things that are happening around our infrastructure can be handled properly.
And very briefly then, I suppose it also sets you back when it comes to finances, because if you now allocate money for something else and then you need to go back now and fix, it does set you back when it comes to your budgets. So as you say, of course, that, when you've been speaking to police, it seems that there is slow movement there. But as City Power, are you now putting plans in place to safeguard your infrastructure, not only through security, personnel, but also finding alternative means to make sure that you're safeguarding the infrastructure here?
Yeah, you are correct. I think the work that we do, our expertise as City Power, is to provide electricity to ensure that we keep the lights on in the city of Johannesburg. But increasingly, we find ourselves basically diverting a lot of resources in money, in monetary terms, to security. And 100 million was spent in the last financial year alone to deal with the issues of security. You'll know that last year is one of those years where we actually had a lot of cable theft and vandalism, a lot of outages attributed to that, and we were forced to basically ensure that we bring in more firepower, we bring in more boots on the ground, but we also bring in more intelligence, and that's why we managed to get about 290 suspects arrested in the last financial year alone, because of the effort that we're putting. But that is not something that we really need to do, where we spend so much money on security. That is the money that we could be using in terms of electrifying the informal settlements, or even installing street lights or keeping the lights on, buy material, buy the cables that are being stolen on a daily basis. But we find ourselves diverting it to security services. And I think that's why the call is a genuine one to the police to say, please assist us, come on board, bring your boots on the ground, at least visibility as well. But also some of these arrests can actually take us to the kingpins, the real people that are benefiting from the copper cable that is being stolen on a daily basis. Currently, we are arresting the common criminals, the people the small boys that are actually pulling the trolleys. There is someone who's benefiting this. There is someone who's taking that copper outside of the country, as the Hawks has said in one of the meetings that we've held, that we are exporting a lot of copper than we are producing in the country. Then it suggests that this copper could be coming from the cables and the railway lines that have been under attack from this criminal. So I think there is that need for us to basically take the fight seriously. It's a war and it's bigger than city power.
All right, Isaac, thank you so much for your time. And as you say, conversations now need to be had with the police as well as the city to see what the other plans with regards to that space that needs then, as you say, to be headed back to PRASA. But thank you so much for that update. We'll continue, of course, to check in with this particular story and bring you regular updates. That's City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena.